So God, vice versa. Would God be an example of that? No comment on the God line.
It's not an argument from ignorance because evidence is presented. So,
I'll comment on the God thing. Yeah, it takes faith, just like you have faith that those pictures are real. Religion. No, I have a religion that I believe in God. I have faith. You have faith that those pictures are real. Faith.
I've provided
You can't go there. You can't touch it, feel it. You can't take them yourself. You have faith that they're real. Religion.
That's not what religion is. Religion has worship and deities and supernatural and...
Sounds like you're worshiping to me. You're preaching, worshiping, yeah, all that. Religion.
I have evidence. There's evidence that those photos are real. And no counter-evidence. So, therefore, it's not religion. No faith is required.
So the creator, look around you. Creation.
Haven't you got work to do? I thought you were working. You must be a lazy bastard at work. I'd be sacking you if you were doing this.
Yeah, I'm lazy. Come on down, buddy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you do have time. Okay, so explain how this photos were obtained then.
No, I can't. It's irrefutable. Taken from space. I mean, golly, what could I say?
Well, you could tell me. What you could say is explain how they were taken. You could have some theoretical method how you would get these photos. That's what you could do.
I have no idea. I think they're real. I think you converted me. Can I start attacking people and assuming things now?
I wouldn't assume things. I think you should base them on evidence, but welcome to the fold. Welcome to reality.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
You could be the new Jose G. Gonzalez.
You are so good to people. I just can't wait to join back.
Are you accusing me of being mean and nasty?
Can I sit? Yeah, when you were being condescending earlier. Oh, when things get closer, the cow or whatever you were saying.
Oh, that's a clip out of a.
Yeah, you sound stupid.
It's a clip out of a doctor.
Yeah, you sound stupid. Yeah, you're being ugly, and you sounded stupid. Can I sit right next to Curve when I join back? He's my hero.
Give him a hand. I'm sure he'd. I don't even know he'd want that.
Reach around.
A reach around. We call it around here.
What do you call it?
A reach around for
reach around.
A reach around, yeah.
It's a Father Brown clip, I think, is a clip. Surely you know the Father Brown
Ted,
clip.
yeah,
Father Ted, pardon me, yeah. Is there a Father Brown?
No, I'll have to check Google for that. Yes, there is.
And but it's not is it a drama or is it a detective thing? Or
it looks more like that, yeah.
I got a feeling it's Father Brown's also, he's an amateur detective or something or other, yeah.
Yeah, that looks like that might be what
someone gets murdered in his town every week.
Yeah, hang on, let's have a look.
What's the town of Midsummer? It's also like I haven't watched these shows. I've only ever seen the adverts. But Midsummer Murders. It looks like some tiny little town in the UK, and there's a murder every week as well. There, God.
Yeah, a Catholic priest has a knack for solving mysteries in his English village. Yep, that's it. Yeah. But Father Ted's the comedy.
Yeah, some of these English villages have got a fucking high crime rate. Jesus.
Oh yeah.
Here's a question. Could you have a balloon in space?
No. It's not going to float. It's not going to float in space. I guess you could have a balloon and propel it in space.
Well, they only get to a certain altitude.
Echo 1 and Echo 2 were balloons in space.
I meant, like a balloon with air in it. Could you have it in the pressure, which is like 10 times 10 to the negative 10 torr or whatever? negative 17
the ISS is pressurized in space. So, I mean, yeah, as long as you've got a nice, nice tight skin.
And they've got that Bigelow module, haven't they? That's inflatable.
Oh, yeah.
So it would depend on the composition of the balloon, like what material it is.
Cool.
Well, I guess there's only going to be one atmospheric difference between the inside and the outside, so it doesn't have to be particularly strong for that, but it has to be strong to withstand the micrometeorites that might hit it.
So we couldn't possibly show like a balloon in a vacuum chamber being representative of space, like a regular balloon.
It's a dumb suggestion anyway, because it falls foul of the same objection you had with a rocket in a vacuum, and you will come to the realization that the vacuum has now been destroyed by the fact that the gas inside the balloon is now outside the balloon. So that gets you the get out. It's now created its own vacuum atmosphere to push off.
No, it wouldn't be the same thing. It wouldn't be the same thing, and I'll tell you why. Bro, it wouldn't even get that far.
You're even useless at suggesting experiments to prove your own misguided theories.
Bro, I'm telling you, you're wrong. It wouldn't even get that far. Because if it's a regular vacuum, and you're trying to get, the space levels of pressure, 1 times 10 to the negative 17 torr, then the vacuum would expand so much it would just pop.
That's not a high pressure. That's a low pressure.
I know. I'm saying if you're trying to get that, pump out enough air so that it mimics space, it's equal pressure than in space, then the vacuum just expands so much and just pop. It's not like a rocket in a vacuum chamber which can withstand that lack of pressure.
If the material had the tensile strength to withstand the pressure of
a regular balloon, bro.
But why put those objections? You're proposing an experiment that will fail. You're a fucking genius, you are.
No, I'm telling you this. You said the same thing would apply. I'm saying no, we didn't even get that far. Like at least with rockets, we can have them in a vacuum chamber and pump out enough air so that's
this is a thought experiment, and in a thought experiment, I can come up with a balloon that'll withstand the vacuum of the vacuum chamber.
What kind of balloon that we have that we can have access to? Can we do this experiment?
Mylar balloon, buy one from a fucking party shop.
There are experiments of helium balloons in a vacuum, and guess what a helium balloon does in a vacuum? Percent.
It depends on the relative density.
It falls down.
Yeah, it falls down, right?
Every time.
Okay, but in terms of releasing it, what happened when they tried to release it?
You didn't do that.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about inflating a balloon, having the balloon inflated, and then releasing it.
That NASA does not exist to provide you dumbass flat earthers with the evidence you
don't
want.
need NASA for this, right?
Well, who else is going to?
You're going to use
anyone with a vacuum chamber.
Are you going to do it?
If I had a vacuum chamber, I would. I'm trying to think about of how to do it right now.
We'll get a vacuum chamber then. Go on.
Look, we're just trying to work it out. I don't know why some of you guys are on attack mode right now.
I'm sure if you requested from NASA to use their vacuum chamber to do this experiment, they might actually approve it.
They wouldn't. You can't be sure of that. That's a stupid thing to say.
So what are those foil balloons? Those ones that they don't pop.
Yeah, they're better. Yeah.
What are they called?
Mylar. But they don't hold pressure. You release them and push out much.
They don't have the elasticity, right? So they wouldn't create the force of the air coming out, right?
Correct.
Yes, they would, because there's a pressure differential between the insides and the outside of the balloon. It's in a vacuum, remember?
So none of the thrust is caused by expelling the air quicker due to the elasticity of the balloon? Or just that's a negligible amount and it would still work in a vacuum regardless with this Mylar balloons?
No, it would still work because it has an effect.
Okay, so we can test it with the Mylar balloons.
Certainly would have an effect on it.
No, because you would just say that once whatever the gas inside the balloon started coming out, you would say, there's the atmosphere, it's now pushing off. It's a stupid experiment.
No longer have
hopefully you would have a big vacuum chamber so you could inflate them.
Arguing the other side of what you were arguing with the rocket in the vacuum thing only half an hour ago.
No, I'm still arguing the same thing. What are you talking about?
No, you
actually, right now I'm not even arguing it. I'm trying to figure out what a suitable kind of representation for that would be.
Why is the
balloon wasting your time? The basic premise that it's pushing off of something is how rockets work. That is not how rockets work. So all your
rockets work by creating. Hold up. I think you're misunderstanding me. Rockets work with the same mechanism as balloons, and that's why exactly I'm trying to think of a way to do this with balloons because it's more feasible.
A rocket and a balloon work in a different way to what you suggest.
No, they don't. You're creating your own thrust.
Not push off of any mass that might make up an atmosphere. They do not work.
I know it's the expelling of these exhausts are causing forward thrust.
What is your objection to in the vacuum experiment?
So the question is whether or not they can create enough thrust, enough to propel.
So are you saying now? Are you saying you accept that rockets work by the reaction of chucking mass out in one direction?
I'm not saying that they can propel from that only. I want that to be demonstrated. That's the whole point of this. Of course, rockets can propel in exhaust. In atmosphere. There's no question about that. That's demonstrable. Right? I even did it as a kid when we launched the rocket in class. That doesn't matter. What is being discussed right now is whether it's demonstrable that it could happen in a vacuum, which is which imitates.
It's not the atmosphere that was the key thing. It was not the atmosphere that is the essential thing that makes.
Then we should have no problems demonstrating it. Then.
And we do. You just don't accept it. You just won't accept all and any evidence provided for this.
And you've already admitted that balloons and rockets use the same principle. So why are you wanted to have a balloon experiment?
Because there are no rocket ones online. There's not a single rocket one in a vacuum chamber showing propulsion in a vacuum.
That's not what you said half an hour ago. Half an hour ago, you said
I already said that the vacuum sees it to be a vacuum. They don't maintain the vacuum.
Well, neither would a balloon maintain a vacuum.
Neither would a balloon.
Balloon go, it's going to put atmosphere in there, so you've got no objection then. You can't. This balloon experiment makes no difference.
That's the thing. A balloon has a lot less. It's a lot lighter. And it has a lot less thrust that's required to make it propel.
Rocket then, can't
so it's going to have less exhaust, so it's going to have less of an effect. And ideally, you'd have a relatively big vacuum chamber for that balloon, but there's more wiggle room.
Once it moves a millimeter, you've had an effect. So, if it moves 0, you don't have an effect. If it moves 1 millimeter, you do. So this adjusting the size of it.
And another thing, if you're using those, I think you guys called them Mylar balloons or whatever they are, as far as I know, they don't, expand when you're pumping the air out, right? If it's already inflated.
But as we pointed out, there will be a vacuum. There will be a pressure differential, so some gases will escape out the bottom of them and thrust it forward.
Hold up, the gases will escape even when it's shut.
Yes, because they're then creating a internal pressure inside the balloon.
You were cutting in and out. Are you saying that those balloons will leak even when it's shut?
No.
So in your experiment, you're going to close it, then you're going to break the bottom off, and your experiment is to see whether that balloon moves or not.
So here's my working test so far. So you have a vacuum chamber, and inside you have like how some aquariums they have like magnets to help you clean the inside of an aquarium or something. So you have a magnet inside and outside, holding this already inflated balloon in place, and then you pump the vacuum chamber, pump the air out, right? And you make it into a vacuum chamber. If it's in this Mylar balloon, it shouldn't expand a lot and take up space and stuff like that, right? So anyways, you get this vacuum, which is equal to the vacuum of space. Ideally, the vacuum chamber is, maybe 10 times the size of the balloon or something, but, and then you just move the magnet on the outside to move the magnet on the inside and to release the inflated balloon and let it propel, and we see if it propels or not.
Yeah, and now the vacuum chamber is full of atmosphere, and you've got your ready-made excuse again. So what's the point?
I already said it's more lightweight, so there's more exhaust. It's lighter, so there's less exhaust. Go ahead. Go ahead, man. You want to cut me off, so go ahead. Or don't. Anyways, I said it was lightweight. It was a lot more lightweight than a rocket. There's a lot less exhaust in the rocket.
That this is irrelevant. If it moves, it moves. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It might move a smaller amount, or a larger amount when you've got less weight to be accelerated, but this is irrelevant.
No, it's very relevant. It should move if it's moving primarily due to this mechanism and not due to pushing off of the atmosphere. Then it should move almost as much as it does in real life.
Oh, so you're gonna your experiment. You're gonna do 2 of these experiments, one with and without atmosphere in there.
Basically, yeah. That's what we're comparing with.
Oh, you didn't mention this yet. So this is
we already know how balloons work when in atmosphere.
No,
we know
you do a controlled experiment. You don't know how this balloon works in this chamber under these conditions. So you've got a good experiment now. You can do it plus or minus the atmosphere, and you're saying that with the atmosphere, it's going to go a lot further when the atmosphere is there. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not making any claims. This is your guys'
you make a claim.
I'm trying to test it. You guys haven't provided any demonstration for it, so I'm thinking of demonstration that I can do.
It's not our claim. It's your claim.
Yeah, no, propulsion in a vacuum is the Glober's claim that you can propel in space.
No, I'm sorry. You claim
you're
it will not work
because
in a
you
vacuum.
actually admitted it happens.
No, I've claimed that there hasn't been any demonstration for it, so I'm trying to think. I'm trying to
actually, yes,
the ball,
you did.
do whatever I can.
That it occurred. A rocket in a small vacuum chamber.
I said the vacuum chamber ceased to be a vacuum as soon as the exhaust was released, because the rocket created its own atmosphere.
Okay, then how in your little
so it's not a vacuum chamber anymore.
Are you going to get around that pre-canned excuse?
I already told you, bro. Ideally, we have a relatively large vacuum chamber, and the balloons are less light. They're lightweight compared to rockets, and they have less exhaust.
Look, I mean,
but as soon as they have exhaust, it's already that pre-canned excuse that it's atmosphere they're pushing off of.
He's got a good experiment. Right. He's got a good experiment because we can compare with and without atmosphere. And I'm not making a claim. It's true, you're making this claim, and the hypothesis.
I'm not making any claim. I didn't claim that they could propel in a vacuum. Unless you're saying I claim that they could propel in space.
They can't. You're claiming that it cannot work.
I'm saying it's never been demonstrated. Yes, so I'm trying to think of how we can demonstrate it.
You need to construct a vacuum
chamber. No, that's not how it goes, bro. The burden of proof is on the positive claim. The positive claim is that we can propel in the vacuum.
We've already proven that it works.
Really? Where's the proof that where's the demonstration that we can propel in vacuum? Go ahead.
You can watch all kinds of video made of space shuttles and of SpaceX launches.
That's exactly what's in question. That's what we're trying to prove. So that's circular logic.
And you can prove that.
No, that's circular logic.
There is a video in the chat, right?
Because the entire question, the crux of this issue is that's questionable material as to whether or not they're actually propelling in space.
No.
So in order to prove that, you need to demonstrate it somewhere else.
No.
You can't just talk about what we're trying to prove.
That is not questionable proof, not for us. It may be for you, so you need to prove that it doesn't work.
No, because you're still okay. So you're claiming that is those rockets, those space shuttles are in space.
Prove it doesn't work.
Where's the proof? Where's the proof that those space shuttles are in space? The burden of proof is on that positive claim. Where's the proof?
I'll again refer you to my.
This is not a court of law, son.
Okay, I'll refer you back to your previous claim.
The rules of logic.
You observed a rocket happening in a vacuum chamber.
Yeah, I observed a rocket happening in a vacuum chamber where it released its own exhaust, and the exhaust had nowhere to go because it was a small vacuum chamber, and it propelled.
The balloon's going to do the same thing, and the balloon's going to do exactly the same thing.
And I believe
if that's the case, then it's not a big enough vacuum chamber, or the balloon is too big or something. I'm trying to figure out a way where we could do it, and we could minimize the variables of the exhaust creating propulsion.
Well, great. When you finish your experiment, bring it to us, and we'll take a look at it.
I'm trying to do your guys' work for you. It's your claim.
No. We're the ones that do all the work. You guys need to do
what work? What demonstration is there of propulsion in the vacuum? There is none.
Your own claim that you observed a rocket in a vacuum chamber is valid enough claim.
Yeah, okay.
I believe I've seen the YouTube video where they've done it with and without atmosphere in the chamber to disprove your point, because your hypothesis is that it needs to push off air. Pushing off air adds to the force. I heard you say that. You agree that there is some propulsion based on the gases being thrown out the back, but you say in the atmosphere it adds more because it's pushing off that atmosphere to add more propulsion.
Yeah, I don't know if it works in space. I don't know if it works in space.
Yeah, it does.
You're claiming that, but you've never demonstrated it yet.
Yeah, there's a demonstration. Model rocket engine in a vacuum chamber. 4K slow motion.
Yeah, no, I've seen that one. I've seen all the videos on there, and none of them maintain the vacuum, and none of them are big enough where the stuff can disperse as if it were in space.
You don't understand what a vacuum is.
I do. Apparently better than you, because the vacuum ceases to be a vacuum as soon as there's enough exhaust in that small vacuum chamber.
It's still a vacuum.
And that's exactly what happens.
No, it's not. You can't have atmosphere and vacuum in the same small vacuum chamber.
You do not understand what a vacuum means.
It's still a vacuum, he said? You're insane, bro.
It's still a vacuum.
No, it's not.
Okay, if you claim that you can't have atmosphere and a vacuum in the same chamber, how do you think that making a large chamber is somehow...
Did you hear what I said? Did you hear what I said? I said same small chamber. Don't leave out words that I say purposely just to misrepresent.
Okay, then how exactly do you establish that a large chamber is going to somehow make that occur, that there's not going to be atmosphere and vacuum in there?
If it's a larger chamber, you have more wiggle room. You give the exhaust more of a chance to disperse as it would in space.
And it's
but then it has atmosphere.
If it doesn't disperse, if it's hitting the walls and stuff, if it's a small area, then it's not the same thing at all.
Science doesn't revolve around wiggle room.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't revolve around this either, because that's not a vacuum. Straight up.
But it's still a vacuum.
No, it's not, bro. You're not maintaining the vacuum. It's not a vacuum. As soon as you stop maintaining the vacuum,
you're not maintaining
and you're pumping exhaust in, then it's not vacuum.
Talk over me all you want to.
Okay,
but it's not going to be a vacuum as soon as you release the balloon. It will not be a vacuum anymore.
Yeah, that's fine. But if the balloon is small enough, has little exhaust, and it's in a vacuum chamber that's relatively larger,
but it's a lot in a vacuum chamber the moment it starts releasing exhaust.
Wait a minute.
Yes,
it's not a perfect vacuum. It's not. It wouldn't be a near perfect vacuum, but it's the best we can do to demonstrate what we're trying to demonstrate. It's much more better at demonstrating what we're trying to demonstrate.
Compare the rocket to the size of the vacuum of space.
Isn't it funny that you guys are trying to discount it even before it's ever done, just because it can't be done?
You have no idea about what
are you guys scared of? Are you not? This is obvious. You guys aren't concerned about the truth. There was only one person of you that said, "Yeah, I mean, it could work. It's a feasible experiment. It could work. Maybe it'll tell us something."
If the vacuum chamber is large enough, then the balloon would be accepted by you. Now, how much larger than fucking space do you need the fucking vacuum to be?
I already said, if the balloon is 1/10 the size of the vacuum chamber or something like that. And I said, ideally, the smaller the balloon, the better to show
how much is it allowed to move for your hypothesis to be proven true?
Well, if there's a lot of room between it and the wall, right, and it has a lot less exhaust than a rocket, then it should be moving if it was propelling just on its own account immediately.
Where did you get this ratio?
And if it doesn't, then it kind of the stuff has to equalize or whatever. It has to create enough of it.
Well, I believe that's what this slow motion video at 4K or whatever that's posted in the chat shows, that it moves instantaneously. So
it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
It absolutely does.
And also, there's no barometer there, and ideally, this one will have a barometer attached to show that we're maintaining the one-time.
There's a vacuum pump on there's a gauge on it telling you how much the vacuum is. So don't lie.
Could you not do the same? Could you not do the same with the balloon and change the goalposts and say, "Oh, it's not a vacuum anymore"? Right?
That's exactly what will happen.
That's what I'm saying. Ideally, we wouldn't need to we'd have a good experiment to begin with. It would be a small vacuum, a large vacuum chamber.
What a vacuum is, right?
But I do actually. I've already established that. I probably know better than you, because you guys are saying it maintains a vacuum even though there's exhaust in there in a small vacuum chamber. You're insane.
Just that you can continue to keep your goalposts changing. That is why you're doing that, right?
No, dude, I have nothing to prove. It's not my claim. It's your guys' claim. I'm helping you. I'm trying to help you guys demonstrate it.
Atmosphere is called a vacuum.
You can't have
exhaust, it's still called vacuum, right?
But bro, do you understand that you can't have a shifting of the goalposts if you don't have the burden of proof? I don't have the burden of proof. You guys do.
No,
I'm not shifting any goalposts.
You've made
no. Try.
It's your claim.
What's my claim? What is my claim?
Your claim is that a balloon won't move in a vacuum.
That it's suddenly not a
That's
vacuum.
not my claim. I didn't say that at all.
Your claim. And that is fallacious. And it's
No, that's
Okay,
not what I
then
said.
you agree it does work.
My claim is that it's never been demonstrated that we could propel in a near perfect vacuum.
Then we
That
agree.
that's
It
my
works in
claim.
a vacuum. Thank you. We don't need to go any further.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
you're so dishonest.
Well, how do you know? Have you done a literature search on this? I mean,
I've done searches. I've searched far and wide. I've searched as far as I could, and every single site that I could. I multiple search engines. I've searched for rockets and balloons. Released in the vacuum chamber.
If the rocket can be done, you described, you said, I need to be far away from the wall, and you need to see the movement instantaneously. That would prove our point and disprove your point. Well, we've done that with the rocket in the vacuum because the high-speed camera shows that it moves instantaneously before, and you can see where the gas plume hasn't hit the back of the wall before the rocket starts to move. It's obvious in the footage.
No, bro, that's not indicative of what it's like to be in space at all. We already mentioned that there's too much exhaust, too little vacuum chamber. It's not indicative whatsoever.
You just described the experiment needed to have the experiment.
If you're going to use a rocket with that much exhaust and stuff, you would need, ideally, you'd use a smaller rocket. I don't know why they don't use a super mini rocket in that. And then secondly, you would want a bigger vacuum chamber like the one that Brian Cox did that feather bowling ball thing in. But that's never going to happen. I don't think that's ever going to happen because I personally think that they're too scared to show a video like that.
Your example is no better than doing this at 70 or 80,000 feet. If you've got 10% of the volume in that balloon, what do you think happens when you let the gas out of the balloon? What do you think the pressure in that vacuum? Yeah, what do you think the pressure goes?
No, hold up. Okay, I'm trying what you're saying. You're saying 10% of the exhaust is the. Yeah.
What will it become? What will the pressure become in the vacuum?
That's not the point. The point is the vacuum chamber is big enough so that if you do have it at 1 × 10⁻17 torr, that it'll take time for that stuff to disperse, right? And in that time, we should have propulsion before the atmosphere, before it's basically creating its atmosphere from which it can propel off of.
We can see it.
Are you
should be able to propel in that time frame. So the bigger the vacuum chamber, the more time you have. You're buying yourself time.
Are you aware how difficult that is to get 10⁻17 torr? To get down to that, to the vacuum of space.
How difficult is it?
Are you even remotely aware of that?
Is it impossible to get that with a vacuum chamber?
How would you make a vacuum? Can you describe that?
I'm asking you, is it impossible to do that with a vacuum chamber?
How would you make a vacuum?
You're saying it's very difficult. I don't know how difficult it is. Are you saying it's impossible to do it?
How would you produce a vacuum? Can you describe that, please?
Dude, you don't have to be dishonest and obfuscate. It's a simple question. You said it's very difficult. I'm asking you how difficult is it?
Can you describe how a vacuum? I have to know how you would make a vacuum.
I just told you I don't know how difficult it is. I don't know if it can be done with a regular vacuum chamber or not. So you're saying that it's difficult. I'm asking you how difficult.
How to make a vacuum, and you are coughing out assertions about a vacuum. Wow.
Yo, you don't have to ad hom. We're talking about this in particular. I already told you I don't know if it's possible.
I'll tell you how difficult it is. 10⁻17 is at least 10 orders of magnitude better vacuum than we can produce here on Earth in the best vacuum chamber.
All right, there you go. Then it can't actually be demonstrated.
So they can't go up into space and actually demonstrate it?
Well, how do you know they went into space if they've never demonstrated it? That they could propel
the question was, can that happen? Not did they?
No, obviously, if they haven't demonstrated that you could propel in space, how are you going to believe that they propelled in space to get to space? It's circular logic.
Been demonstrated tens of thousands of times.
The answer is they cannot verifiably demonstrate it because that's circular logic.
From space. Photos from space.
Photos from space prove space, really.
Starting with the Nazis in 1945.
Circular logic. Get out of here, man.
Of course, if you take a photograph from some place, that proves that place exists, especially if you take it in 1945.
We're not photographing space. You're saying photographs of the Earth from space prove space.
Yes.
That's circular logic, because you have to go to space to get the photographs from space to prove space. If you don't understand how that's circular logic, then God help you, son.
The photograph proves we're in space. There's no circularity to it.
You have to go to New York to get a photo from New York to prove New York. Does that mean that New York is not real? So it's not.
No, but we're not taking a photograph of space, bro. Now, if you were in space and you're taking a photograph of a barometer showing 1 × 10⁻⁻17 torr,
right? So
maybe.
that is circular logic. So New York doesn't exist. Wow.
No, if you had a photo where the camera was like right beside, this scale, this barometer, and it showed that pressure, then okay.
So what do you call it when you deny all evidence and create an absence of evidence and use that as the foundation for your argument?
That's what you guys are doing. You're saying it's never been falsified, that we can't demonstrate, that we can't compel in space, so therefore it's true. That's literal argument from ignorance.
Photos from space prove we've been to space. Photos of the Earth from space prove we've been to space. Rockets being propelled inside vacuum chambers prove that rockets can fly inside vacuum chambers. That's how we knew rockets would work. When we sent them up into space, we knew, they're going to work because we understand how physics works.
Bro, by your own admission, you're saying that to our capabilities, to our best capabilities, we can only achieve 1/10 of the vacuum that space has.
This is all just degrees of magnitude.
You said one degree of magnitude out of 10 degrees of magnitude.
What Blue said, we can get that at 10 to the -6, 10 to the -7, give or take. Not 10 to the -17. That's why he said 2 orders of magnitude.
You said 10.
10.
Yeah. That's 10 orders of magnitude.
Yeah.
Sorry, 1 order of magnitude.
That's 10 orders of magnitude, starting at nothing.
I can't do math.
Still ending up at nothing.
And the fact that we might fly a rocket in 1 atmosphere, and then we might fly a rocket in half an atmosphere, and then in 0.1 atmospheres. And if we notice that it doesn't make any difference about how the rocket flies, then we've got a pretty good idea that we can extrapolate down to 10 to the -17 torr.
No, but again, I don't understand how you don't see it's an argument from ignorance when you're claiming that we can propel in a vacuum,
because you can
and we can demonstrate that, and then you claim that we can only demonstrate 10 magnitudes below that. And then,
so what's happening here? Hold on a second.
And then still maintain that it's true, just because it can't be proven false.
Percent, what's happening in this video? What's happening in this video?
Let me look at my screen. Hold on. Is this Jake on plane?
Yeah. That's from Mexico. From a rocket that took off in Central California. It's already 300 miles downrange, and it's already 80 miles up. It's still continuing to accelerate. It doesn't slow down, even though it's at 80 miles up, which means there's practically no atmosphere at all, less than in a vacuum chamber. And notice how expanded the exhaust is, showing that it is indeed in a vacuum. You can tell by how expanded the exhaust is. What's happening there?
And we see this on every launch.
How do you know it's in a vacuum? Just because the stuff is expanding.
Well, we know it's 80 miles up. We already know the atmospheric pressure is like 1/100th of sea level at 100,000 feet with just a weather balloon. And this thing is 10 times higher than a weather balloon.
We extrapolate. We plot points and we draw a line, and we can see what trajectory that line's going. That's one way of doing it.
And you can just see by how expanded the exhaust gases are getting.
Hold up. Are you, in terms of the altitude, are you assuming a curved surface or a flat
irrelevant.
surface?
We can assume a flat surface.
If the surface is curving down, then it's going to be going higher at the same angle, and if it's that same trajectory, and if it's a flat surface, it's going to be going less.
It doesn't matter. It's 80 miles over the ground. Whether it's flat or it's curved, it's still 80 miles over the ground, which means that it's already in a vacuum far greater than anything we can easily produce here on Earth.
Okay, forgive me. I'm not just going to take your word for it. Do you have any substantiation that it's 80 miles above the air, above the ground?
Well, people can see it. People can see it from like 3 different states. I've already told you this before. People can see it from 500 miles away. So
well, I mean, I only see this
thing
one
is low to the
video with
ground.
this one vantage point. So,
you just have to Google SpaceX launch on that particular date, Vandenberg, or you'll see videos from San Diego. You'll see videos from San Francisco. You'll see videos from Arizona.
Anyway,
ranging an aerial.
So are you saying that there's no atmosphere 80 miles up? Like if I were to give you that one.
Well, there's so little atmosphere that thing should just fall out of the sky because it has almost nothing to push off of. It has a very, very stratified atmosphere. Right?
Because there's nothing.
It's above the Kármán line.
Yes, it is. And,
Isn't the Kármán line 100 miles? Or is it 100 kilometers?
100 kilometers. And this thing stages right at about the Kármán line, and that's already staged. You can see the first stage descent, in that video.
Ranging an aerial target like say a rocket or a plane or anything is very common knowledge. It's been done for years back when we shot cannons at stuff. It's not hard.
Yeah. So what distance was this one done? And can you point me to the other videos that I could triangulate, kind of see where it is in the air?
Give me 1 second. I'll pull up multiple videos for you. And then you're going to just say, it's not good enough evidence. But I'll still do it anyway, just for kicks.
No, I'll give it an honest look.
While Jake is doing that, I had to look at the thrust equation, because your claim is that the rockets push off the atmosphere, correct?
Yeah, they propelled off of the exhaust.
There are two components to the thrust equation, the basic one. There's the mass flow part, which is m dot times v exhaust, plus the pressure part. I dropped the mass flow part and I calculated just how long, like Jake was showing this video, that the rocket's about 80 miles up. So I did it. I did it just in the first stage to see what the thrust is produced. I can give you the numbers, but I can absolutely guarantee you cannot generate enough thrust just from that pressure differential to get that rocket aloft to that altitude in that amount of time. There's not enough force produced.
Okay, well, I guess this is a conversation to have after we've confirmed, the altitude.
Here's the thing. No, I was asking a simple question. If I gave you the numbers, would you accept that?
I'd have to look into it. Yeah, but if the numbers are accurate, that is like 80 miles up, and there's supposed to be a specific amount of
you give me the altitude that you want to do it at, and I'll show you that it's impossible to accelerate to that velocity from zero, sitting on the ground, using only the pressure differential portion of the thrust equation.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked into the thrust equation, to be honest. I've looked into like the ideal gas law and stuff like that, and I've looked into the drop equation. And
you're the one who's complaining about the thrust, and then you haven't looked into the thrust. But that's fine.
No, I'll look into it.
I'm happy to show you that you're wrong.
Do you have a website where it gives a good breakdown
I'll show you that you're wrong.
of the thrust equation?
Type in NASA thrust equation and you'll find it. Okay.
And it gives a good breakdown?
What breakdown do you need? It's one equation.
No, I mean like for each variable, like a good explanation. There's some websites are better at explaining it than others.
Very, very simple. M dot is the mass flow rate of the exhaust. VE is the exhaust velocity at the nozzle.
Oh, right.
Right. You have your pressure of the atmosphere, you have the pressure of your exhaust, and then the area of your exhaust. Those are your variables. Straightforward enough? You can look it up if you want, but that's what
I already am looking at right now.
Funny thing is, it works better in a vacuum.
Okay, so I just posted videos from Los Angeles, San Diego, Phoenix, and I'm trying to find one from the Bay Area right now for you. Okay, that's going to be a circle that's 500 miles in diameter, roughly.
Sorry, I said pressure of the exhaust. I missed there's the pressure of the atmosphere as well. And there's two pressures. That's the pressure differential you're talking about times the area of the exhaust.
Yeah, as delta P increases, the thrust increases.
But that pressure differential part is dominated by the mass flow rate times the exhaust velocity.
Absolutely.
Of course, it's recoil, Of course, it's essentially recoil. What else would it be?
No, I had to look at it because, like, Blue, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the pressure differential part that represents the pushing off the atmosphere claim.
Yes, and that is dumb, but
it's dumb. But I had to work my mind to kind of think in terms of, put my flat Earth hat, which hurts my head. So, but I can show it that way.
Oh, you lowered yourself to their level, didn't you?
I needed to take 3 showers up. Sorry.
So I did what he wanted. Here's videos, 2 videos from Arizona, 1 from Phoenix. We got 1 from Mexico. We have San Diego. We have Los Angeles and Anaheim. We've got Monterey Bay in Northern California. So, yeah, you think that thing is not 100, 80 to 100 miles up?
But they're all fake, man.
Yeah, is it getting
I'm
higher?
looking into it right now.
That's
Is this? I'm gonna post a picture right here for the Falcon 9 trajectory. Is this like actually true, or just some sort of like prototype or something?
Can you explain to me this pushing off the atmosphere argument? I don't really even understand what this idea is.
Yeah, you're talking about the landing of the booster. The trajectory of landing the booster.
Yep.
So on that trajectory, it's 100, so it has to eventually reach horizontal when it gets to about, I guess it's going to the space. I'm guessing it's a space shuttle mission, so it's going to need to get to around at about 350 kilometers. It needs to be approximately horizontal. Sorry, I don't work in freedom units.
If I understand right, you think that thrust is impossible without an atmosphere? Somehow there's some kind of pushing thing? Is that your idea?
No, I don't know, but I'm just saying it's never been demonstrated.
I'm just curious to know, what do you think is
in a vacuum?
Oh, hold on, before we move along. Before we move along, I just want him to answer what do you think is happening in those videos?
I haven't looked at the videos yet. I'm still trying to figure out the trajectory of SpaceX so I can compare it with the videos after I map them.
Oh, by the way, I'll take any altitude from anywhere between 30 to 100. Doesn't matter. Just give me an altitude to work with.
Am I right in understanding that you have some intuitive feeling that it only makes sense for thrust to push off an atmosphere? Is that about what it is? And so because of that, you feel like you want more evidence for that not being the case?
So the claim is that these space shuttles they propel in space, right? In near perfect infinite vacuum. So I want to see that demonstration. And yeah, you're right. I do. I have.
Why? But what makes you?
Why do you even need that?
Why do you? What makes? I'm really curious because if it's an intuition thing, I can give you a thought experiment that might show you a contradiction in your intuition.
Okay, so again, the claim is made. The burden of proof is on that claim. I'm not going to give any. There's no gimmies. I don't just believe by faith or blind faith.
No. I remember a week ago with the bowler ball percent. What the fuck?
The claim is supported by basic physics and momentum. How conservation of momentum explains everything pretty much. So there's no reason to think you need.
In that case, then it should be very easily demonstrated. Then
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's demonstrated or not. It's you seem to have a problem with So you have some intuitional reason to doubt this because you don't doubt every little thing in the entire universe.
No, that's logic. Right? Those are the rules of logic. Positive claims have a burden of proof. I'm holding them to the burden of proof. I'm not just going to appeal to majority.
You have to use logic. There's no perfect vacuum. No matter what the fucking setup is, you're going to say there's a particle.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether the perfect vacuum or not. That's all irrelevant because.
I know it doesn't. I hear him moving the goalpost. So I'm saying.
I've been maintaining near perfect. I don't want to open that can of worms.
Basic experience with conservation of momentum can be demonstrated easily anywhere. So there's no reason to not think that conservation momentum will work.
No, he's been through it. I've heard him walk through the bowling ball and the chair and the roller skates 100 times.
I'm not doubting the Newton's third law. I'm not doubting that whatsoever. I'm saying that it should be able to be demonstrated if you're making the claim that applies in
but it doesn't matter why.
Then you should be able to demonstrate.
Why? Why would it not be possible?
Because you're making a claim that applies that you can propel in space. You should be able to demonstrate it. It's as simple as that, bro.
But why would a vacuum of no medium, no less friction do anything? Like, what are you thinking?
But you're making.
Let me just say this real quick.
No, but you're the one making a positive claim. You are claiming that a vacuum changes. Your positive claim is that the condition of being in a vacuum changes what's going on.
Or
So
could
that's your.
I didn't say that.
But you are.
No,
Yes,
I said
you are.
it's never been demonstrated. Now you can strawman me and say I'm making a claim as much as I want, but I'm holding you guys to your claim.
Extension of your story.
What you're trying to do is a shifting the burden of proof policy.
No, that's what you're trying to do, right?
You just watched
That's
the
what
video
you're trying
of
to
it.
do.
Percent,
Physics
by the way,
works in this particular way. There's no reason to think it doesn't work in a vacuum.
It's not that's never
I
been
can even-
demonstrated.
Here, let's have a thought
Right.
experiment here.
Listen, if you guys, wait 1 second,
Hey,
bro.
let me-
You've
can I
been
give you a
dominating conversation. You've
Can I
been
give you a
talking
quick
for
thought
like 3 minutes straight. Go ahead, go
Let me
ahead.
just give you a simple thought experiment, okay? If you have a balloon and you're holding it closed and you just let go in normal atmosphere, you admit that the balloon will fly around as the air escapes from the balloon, right?
Yes.
Okay, now let's say you were in a perfect vacuum and you were holding the same balloon. Forget that whether you're going to die or not. Just assume you could just stand there holding a balloon in a perfect vacuum, and you let go. Do you think the balloon will not move?
I don't know.
You have no
Why
idea. So
do
you
you not
actually think
know?
it's so
Because it's-
you actually
For the first
think
one,
it's
I can
possible.
listen.
Wait, you
Listen, for the
actually
first
think it's
one,
possible that the balloon will just sit there and not move.
You're
I
not
don't
even
know.
applying
It will
logic,
rush
you're
out.
hypothesizing. You're just saying I don't
you're
know.
asking. Yeah, he's at. Well, is it just like what do I imagine, or you
Yeah,
know?
what do you imagine?
He didn't
What do
say.
you imagine? What do you imagine? What is your intuition?
I
tell you?
imagine either thing could happen. I imagine it could slowly fizzle without propelling, and I imagine that it could propel. I don't
So
know
you don't
which one is
believe-
correct.
Why do you
You
think it
don't
might
believe
slowly
Wow.
fizzle without propelling? Why?
For the
don't-
first
you don't
one,
believe in
with it propelling in the air, I can just fall back on my experiences, and that's verifiable for me. That's information that is
But then
verifiable,
air
and I know.
gets thinner and thinner and thinner.
Whereas
The
the other
balloon
one-
still works.
Does it? I don't know that. I've
But
only done it in
yes,
terra
it's-
firma.
Okay,
You-
sorry.
you would think
That
at
might
some
be the
point-
missing piece. That might be the
You
missing
think
piece.
I don't know if it's due to I've never tested it with these like Mylar or whatever they called them balloons. So I don't know if it's due to the elasticity of the balloon pushing it out, or if it's due to the atmosphere. I don't know. All I know is that it propels in the air, and I've never seen it demonstrated where it propels in a vacuum. That's the claim you guys are making, that there is propulsion in a vacuum. So the burden of proof is on that claim. I shouldn't have to imagine things. Usually, that's the burden of proof.
I agree, man. I think I was stuck on this one like when I first come into Flat Earth just for a little bit. But like, think about the opposite and equal reaction. That's all you need. It's easier in an empty space.
Because his brain is stuck. That's the only way I can describe it.
You can think that
It's
all you
like a
want, and
bit.
the guy that was
It is.
speaking before, yeah, you're right. There's some intuitive.
As an intelligent adult, but you do a piss poor job of it.
Percentage.
And by the way, Jake posted the videos. Go give me an altitude where you think it
I'd
rocketed.
love to look at the videos right now, but you guys keep on peppering me with questions. So
Percentage, could you tell us what you mean when you say vacuum?
what do you mean?
Well, what do you mean when you say vacuum?
Are you talking about the vacuum that's allegedly in space, the near perfect infinite vacuum, or do you mean in a vacuum chamber?
In general, what is a vacuum? In general.
In general, it would be a lack of atmosphere, lack of gases.
You mean a total lack of atmosphere? No, wait. You mean a total lack of atmosphere? That is a vacuum for you.
No, I didn't say total, because if we're saying total, then it's a perfect vacuum. So nice try.
So what's
a vacuum? Is a
I would appreciate if you wouldn't try these underhanded tricks, bro.
So what's a vacuum?
Why? You do it all the time.
I just told you, a lack of atmosphere. And no, I do not do that all the time. I strive to be intellectually honest. You guys can hate that as much as you want. You guys can take offense to it as much as you want. But because I hold you guys to the rules of logic and ask you to be intellectually honest and strive to do that myself, you don't have to take offense to it.
Funny, you still don't even know the definition of ad hom or use it properly when you throw it out there.
I very much do.
You still don't even understand the definition.
And this right here is a red herring. By the way, this is a red herring from the actual argument.
No, you don't.
And that's
you
an ad hom in
use
and
these
of itself.
terms, but you actually don't know how to use them in a proper logical structured argument.
Sure.
That's why I think
Man,
you're a
say
By the way,
enough,
go calculate
say enough,
the
it might be
altitude.
true.
That's your homework.
What do
Say
you
enough, it
exactly
might be
mean?
true.
What do you exactly mean when you say no atmosphere, lack of atmosphere?
Pretty self-explanatory, buddy. And without getting more specific. That's
No,
as good as it gets.
I didn't understand it, so it's not self-explaining.
Then saying near perfect.
A lack,
We also know he means empty
of
space
gas,
by now.
atmosphere, matter, whatever you want to say. Now,
So
if it's a
lack of
perfect
matter-
vacuum, it would be complete and utter total lack, right?
There can still
And
be some
if it wasn't,
atmosphere left.
then there'd still be some.
There can be some atmosphere left, and you would still say this is a vacuum, right?
It depends
On what does it depend?
on whether you're trying to achieve a perfect vacuum or a near perfect vacuum.
What would you call
What's
near
near
perfect?
perfect?
What's a near
Man, that's the term that I
What
learned
is
from
near
you
perfect?
guys.
Tentor? Is tentor a near perfect vacuum?
I
What
do
about
not know what the
1/4?
classification for it is. All I know is it's the term that you guys use, and you're very, stringent upon saying near perfect vacuum, just
And you
because.
You're the arbitrator. You're this
and I don't want to
arbitrator.
open that can of worms.
Right. So you did not really even define.
Or you
a
don't
vacuum.
understand it?
You seem to be
I
quite
understand it
confused
well enough.
what a vacuum is, and you saying that you understand, you demonstrated that you don't.
No, the one that seems to be confused is you, because I've answered you. You said generally, what's a vacuum? I said generally, it's a lack of atmosphere, lack of matter, lack of gas, whatever you want to say. Now you're trying to, delve deeper in. So if you want something specific, then ask a specific question.
And you
Okay.
have shown that you don't understand the topic, right?
Okay, so by saying that generally a vacuum is a lack of atmosphere or a lack of matter, that's me showing I don't understand the topic. Nice try.
Well, the logic, right? Listen, it's fair to say maybe if there's a different scenario, maybe there's different results, right? But you're seeing a gradient of the scenario working in every single way, the conservation of momentum and the whatever laws you want to apply. Whenever you have these counter forces, man, you know that you don't need to be making contact with material and pushing off of it to conserve the momentum. You know, when there's an explosion, energy goes out in all directions. They harness the explosion, they focus the vector of it. It's simple to understand. Also, they don't like when you say vacuum.
So when there's a little atmosphere left, then it's still a vacuum, right?
It depends, I guess.
It depends on what.
Depends on what definition you're going by as well. Depends on how much
You're the
atmosphere and
arbitrator.
what your definition is.
You were arbitrating these definitions, bro.
If I'm arbitrating it, then a vacuum is an absence, like a complete absence. But I don't want to get into that kind of worms because they'll be like, oh, in that case, then it never happens because then there is no vacuum and stuff like that. So it's cool.
No, any lower pressure than atmospheric pressure is called a vacuum. When you take a container and evacuate it, you call that thing a vacuum. Then what I wonder is, why did you claim that rocket is suddenly not in a vacuum just because it has produced a small amount of gas? It's still a lower pressure, so it's still a vacuum, right?
No, I was very
Every area is
clear.
a vac-
I was
yes,
very
he's
clear.
right, percent.
I was very
still a
clear about
vacuum.
saying the vacuum of space. It
there
does
are
not
different
demonstrate the vacuum of
types
space. It
of
doesn't demonstrate propulsion that they claim is happening in space with rockets.
In general about a vacuum. We are not talking about.
No, we were talking specifically about that. If you want to jump in and talk in
He's
general
picking
terms, that's
on your
fine.
definition of vacuum and showing why it's bad. Because
Yeah, he's
anywhere
trying to
there's a pressure
cause a semantic
difference, it's a
argument.
vacuum.
That's fine.
Just say empty space, please. It's really gonna
No,
make it messy.
it's still a near perfect vacuum in space. So
Just call it empty
if you
space.
want,
Your issue is
I'm not
there's
gonna,
no material. Your
No,
issue isn't that
he
there's a
wants to-
pressure difference. Your issue is that there's no material to push off. So your relevant
Bro,
term
I
is
understand
empty
you.
space.
I understand you, bro. I understand and I appreciate you, but at the same time, I'm not going to bow down to someone that's trying to make a semantic argument. Okay, he understands that words have different contexts, different definitions.
They know
okay?
what you
He
mean.
knows that
They're
a vacuum of space is
probing
different
you
than a
in all these
vacuum in a
messy
container
ways.
where I suck out a little air.
So assign a number to it. For your experiment, the one you're talking about with a balloon and a vacuum chamber, assign a number to the vacuum. What number are you talking about?
It doesn't matter at this point. If we can't even get you can't even get like 10 orders of magnitude close to the vacuum of space, then we're not going to be able to demonstrate how rockets propel in space. So we won't be able to prove it whatsoever.
So he will not assign a number.
All right, let me ask you.
Extrapolation, right?
Yeah, let's try this one. How much larger is 10 to the minus 17th than 0?
Like infinite? Because 0?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
He's right. It's infinitely bigger.
And so
divide the fucking number delta.
Yeah, and 0.1 atmosphere is infinitely bigger than 0 atmospheres as well. That's the point. Yeah.
Exactly. So assign a number to it.
Sorry, Blue. Sorry.
What do you mean assign a number to it? That's the number that you guys have for the pressure in space.
No.
We have pressure here, so it's not 0.
The point is that if you run a rocket at 0.1 atmosphere or 1 atmosphere or 0.0001 atmosphere, they all go the very similar speed. You don't see a curve that is implying that what you say might happen happens. We know it doesn't happen. So, end of argument. Just because we can't get to 10 to the minus 17 torr and do the experiment at that level, we've flown a rocket out there and found it still works. So we have done it. That's how we know that space is 10 to the minus 17 torr. We wouldn't know that unless we'd been there, would we?
Okay, so two things. If we're saying that, the difference from times 10 to the negative 17 torr versus times 10 to the negative 7 torr is, very, very, very little, and it's fine, it demonstrates what's happening in space almost exactly, then that's fine. We can formulate this kind of test and figure out whether or not these balloons will propel in that negative times 10 to the negative 7 torr vacuum, right? If it's not something that can actually demonstrate how it is in space, then we have to disregard it, and we're back at square one completely.
And the trend shows that the former is the case, not the latter.
Okay, so in that case, we should be able to show that this balloon propels in, if the vacuum chamber is large enough and the balloon is small enough.
We don't need to show it with a balloon. We've shown it with a rocket, so we don't need to show it with a balloon. So game over.
No, but you haven't actually shown it with rockets. That's
let's say we can get the vacuum chamber down to 10 to the minus 7. That's almost impossible, but let's say we could. And we put that balloon in there, and the balloon is 10% of the volume of the vacuum chamber. And now we release the balloon. Now the pressure goes from 10 to the minus 7th to about 80 torr. Is that okay with you?
Ideally, it would be. I only threw 1/10 of the size just as a random figure. Ideally, you would try to get a small balloon as possible and a large vacuum chamber as possible. You try to reduce the exhaust as much as you can.
I'm just trying to show you how much difference that would make.
And how small a movement proves your point. Because you can do that large vacuum chamber, the thing is still going to move a bit, and you need to decide, should it move 0 or some number above 0? At what point is the point proven?
No, if it was a really large vacuum chamber, then...
And it moves a millimeter, who wins?
If it moves, then that means that it's propelling.
Okay.
Ideally, it would move immediately after you release the whatever's keeping the thing closed.
Have it sort of a nano rocket in a vacuum chamber, and this would prove the point. Is that what you're saying?
I think the major issue we'd have is how are we going to release this balloon so that it can propel without it being near the walls.
Try something different.
Because the only way I can think of it is using those aquarium cleaner things, 2 magnets on one magnet on each side. Keeping it closed, and then you move it from the outside.
Very evidently, as soon as you let the balloon go, there's going to be air in there from that balloon, right? But what if we had a little card that would throw, I don't know, lead balls or BBs or something out back? Just throw them, not shoot them with air. Would that move or wouldn't it move?
What?
Do you think it would move or wouldn't it move?
I heard you say a cart shooting BBs.
Yes, a little, fairly non-frictional thing that is shooting little BBs or lead balls or whatever out behind it.
Yeah, I think physics.
I don't understand what you're. I'm trying to conceptualize it, but it's not.
Think of a little gun, like a spring one that just put a spring tension in it, put a ball in front of it, and shoot it.
Okay.
And it spouts little balls out, right? There's no air involved, so we're never gonna compromise that vacuum. We're just shooting out little balls constantly. Yeah. Would that have a recoil? Would that have a recoil in there?
Would the spring have a recoil?
And shooting those little balls off, throwing them, it could be a spinning thing where they were thrown off in one direction.
In your hypothesis, where rockets push off the atmosphere, would this experiment work? Would the little cart go backwards or not, or forwards?
Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. You're saying like a little gun or type thing, or like a spring-loaded, thing is attached to a cart that has wheels and can move, and you fire something, and the cart is moving backwards on those wheels. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because then it doesn't add atmosphere to the chamber.
Yeah, does it or doesn't it move back? In your world.
Well, if it's being pressed, wouldn't the recoil make it go forward towards where it shot?
Normally recoil goes the other way. You shoot the bullet one way and you push the other way. That's pretty much how recoil works. But does that happen in that void?
No, but if it's spring loaded, you're pushing down on the spring, right? And then the spring itself then returns to its normal state towards where it shot the
we have a little
projectile.